Welcome to Tabernacle Talk, an interactive Bible study of Tabernacle Christian Church in Durham, North Carolina, and hosted by Pastor Greg Cousin. 2 Timothy 2:15 says that we should study to show ourselves approved unto God, a workman that should not be ashamed, rightly dividing the word of truth. We welcome you to join in this study by sending in your questions or comments as we endeavor to equip the body of Christ to effectively carry the good news to the nation. Now, here's Pastor Cousin.
And SMART goals, where the acronym of it stands for being specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely. And whenever you look at timely, you can also look at, is it tangible? Can you actually witness the goal, the results of the goal? So we talked about being specific, making sure that your goal is clearly identified, where it's not a general, it's very, very clear on exactly what you want to accomplish. There is no doubt. But what that does, it also provides you with opportunity to measure as well as determine whether you reach the goal. And when we talk about measurable, is there something quantifiable that you can do that makes sure that you're actually going toward the goal? And finally, is it attainable? Is it attainable where, is it something that you can actually accomplish? Or, I could come up with several scenarios that would be realistic, but there's some things, like for right now in my life, I would not say that one of my goals is to be an astronaut. I don't think that's something that's ever going to happen in my life. That's number one. I don't want that to happen in my life. I like staying right down here on Earth, and I don't even like the idea of going up there in space and something blowing up, or getting lost in space. But it's got to be realistic from the perspective of, can you attain the goal? But speaking of realistic, is where we actually want to kick in today, because we didn't get a chance to discuss the last two components of a SMART goal, and that is whether it's realistic or attainable. When you look at something being realistic, you want to consider first, is the goal a goal that you can actually accomplish? Is it something that is reasonable? I used the example during the last session about the young guy who was about 4'10", maybe 5 feet tall. He was in a special class because of his learning disability, and at the same time he was not playing basketball. He was in the 9th or 10th grade. He was not playing basketball for the basketball team, but he wanted to be in the NBA. You never saw him go to the gym to play basketball, and he wanted to be in the NBA. It kind of reminds me of the woman who wanted to win the lottery, and she continued to talk about, God, every time the lottery number comes out, I never win. I don't know what I've done to actually not be able to win this lottery. And God just felt the need to intervene. So he came out and just talked to her one day. He said, well, the first thing you got to do is buy a ticket. And she hadn't done the first part. So it wasn't realistic for her to think that she was going to win the lottery. And even though it's fun and joking to think about it, but a lot of times people do put goals out there that are simply not realistic, and it costs them. Sometimes the goals can cost you significantly, not just because it's a goal that you had first aspired to attain, but because it could be something that's harmful to you. It could come back to hurt you. If the goal is, first of all, not realistic, should you take a chance? I was reading recently about scuba divers going down into a cave, or a new cave that they had discovered, and this new cave comes out to this one part where there's a drop that is 4 miles deep in the ocean. That's kind of scary. But realistically speaking, is it realistic to say, I'm a new diver, I'm going to go and try to do that one? I don't know. I have a friend who is a motorcycle rider, and he was talking to me recently about this trail up in the upper part of North Carolina, the western part of North Carolina, and it's called the Dragon Tail. And what it is 300 and something curves, 312 curves with an 11-mile stretch.
Right.
And motorcycle riders love to go ride that trail. I mean, it's like one bank right after the other. Well, if you go on YouTube, you'll see people who tried to ride the trail.
Wasn't very successful.
And they're off in the ditch. You don't get a brand new motorcycle and say, I'm going to go ride the Dragon Trail. You don't be an inexperienced rider and you say, I'm going to go ride the Dragon Trail, because it's not realistic. It really is not. So make sure that whenever you choose your goal, you make sure that they're realistic. Another thing that you want to keep in mind, a goal can be a high goal, meaning that it can be a significant and require a lot of work. And the reality is that the more significant the goal is, requiring a lot of effort, the better chances of you actually completing the goal versus one that doesn't require a lot of work. And I'm thinking about this from the perspective, if you set a goal that is clearly that does not require a lot of work, you're less motivated to get it done. And when you think about it, you think about something as simple as I want to lose 2 pounds over the next 4 years. How motivated are you? When are you going to start on that?
Probably after
You got 4 years. You got 4 years.
Yeah, probably the 4th year.
Okay, the 4th year.
6 months.
Beginning of the 4th year.
So, but if you said, I want to lose 10 pounds in the next 5 months, when are you going to start on it? You're going to get busy, because 10 pounds, that's a pretty decent goal. And what's neat about it is it's really realistic if you apply yourself, because you can take a look at what you're eating, you can look at how much exercise you're doing, you can look at where you need to cut back things, whether you're one of those people who like to sit down and have a little beer with your dinner. Maybe you can cut that out. A lot of calories, all the wasted calories. So make sure that your goal not only is realistic, but it's something that you can accomplish, but it's worthy of your effort, so that you actually will start on your goal and make it happen. Are there any questions so far about what we've talked about concerning what we discussed in our last session, as well as this so far?
I have a question. So when you're talking about the guy who's like 4'10" or 5 foot, who determines if your goal is realistic? Because to him, that is realistic to go to the NBA.
And that's one of the things. That's one of the things that I definitely agree. For him, it was realistic, but at the same time, I did say he was in special classes. And I'm not making light of that. I'm saying that because and it was not meant to be a joke. He was in special classes. That was one of the reasons why. And that was one of the reasons why he would have that type of goal and not be working toward it. But you're the one who actually are going to determine whether the goal is realistic or not. And I would tell you, I think that question leads into so many other aspects of what we do as Christians and as people in general. There's a lot of times when people will try to talk you out of something that you believe that you can do. And you should have a right to try to move forward to achieve that, whatever you want. And sometimes there are times when you need to literally rebuke people who are telling you, oh man, don't even try. You really think you're gonna get it? And you don't know. And I want to use this as an analogy and not planting seeds in anyone's head, but there may be a beautiful young woman comes inside of the work environment, and you find out she's not married, highly educated, everything. And then there's this guy sitting over here saying, man, I want to date her. And then you got your friends telling you, man, there ain't no way in this world you're going to ever get a date with her. This ain't going to happen. Man, look at her. And then look at you. But you don't know. You don't know. You don't know her. You don't know him. And it's not necessarily your place to tell someone what they can and cannot do. However, I will tell you this. if you're a friend and if you have the opportunity and someone has set a goal and you look at it and you say, man, that's going to be tight. It's okay to engage them in a conversation because two things could happen. One, if you talk to them and you say, hey, listen, if this is what you're wanting to do and you're not playing basketball yet, what are you going to do to start making this dream come true? So you can start planting seeds for them to take action, to say, okay, I really do want to do this. I'm not going toward it. So you can do that. The second thing your conversation could do is bring into reality what the obstacles that they are facing and if those obstacles are insurmountable where they cannot achieve them. But it gives them the benefit to reflect on their goal versus what they're doing in the process to accomplish the goal, or if they need to keep that as their ultimate goal. Yes, sir.
Yes, I was thinking, I had almost a similar situation where it was the opposite way around. When people say you couldn't do something, you try to prove them wrong. I had a friend that told me that one time, as I was coaching, that I couldn't coach girls and boys at the same time. It's never going to happen. It's never going to work, and you're going to lose a whole lot of games. I took that as an initiative to prove to that person, but then also prove to myself that it's able to be done. It was a long, long season, but it was actually done. But that wasn't even a goal of mine to do that. So can like friends be you to a point where they say you can't do it? That actually starts to be like a point in your mind that you can use that as a goal, to try to achieve, or that's just self-motivation.
We had a couple of other people making comments about that. What were y'all saying?
I use it as motivation.
Yes, that would be my motivation.
It's so neat that you said that. Speaking from a personal perspective, I don't compete against any man. I don't have anything to prove to any man. It's all for me about what I do. I try to internalize things because external motivations come and go. But what goes on inside, whatever seed is planted inside, it can bear fruit and nobody has anything to do with it. So I try to think about that. However, if you need a catalyst to keep you motivated and inspired to do, and that so happens to be one, use it to keep going. However, what I thought was interesting about what you said it wasn't a goal of yours in the first place. So I would like for you to think about this. Do not let someone else put barriers in your way that you try to overcome when you don't need to. Did you understand that? Because sometimes people will throw a barrier in your way, just like saying you can't do that. And now you're going to go off and prove them right when you should have been going in this direction to do something else that you needed to accomplish for you to get to this other step. Yeah. So don't wind up letting people, just being cognizant that sometimes people are going to throw things in your way and stumbling blocks in your way. And they're going to want you to not go around. They want you to turn and go another direction. But what you need to do is just go around that stumbling block and go on about your business to ultimately what you wanted to do in the first place.
So just have blinders on.
Sometimes it's good to have blinders, but I always encourage people to look at what they can use to motivate them. Now, for me, when I'm working out, losing weight, I have a scale in my bathroom, and I use that scale as my motivation. Now, does that scale necessarily dictate what I'm going to eat put in my mouth to eat, or how much exercise I'm going to do? No, but it is a catalyst. It's a point of reference to motivate me to continue to do what I want to do. Okay, so I always try to look at things outside and around me that can be an inspiration, but I don't count on those because ultimately what I want to be motivational to me is what I want to do myself. Is it something that important to me? If it is not important enough to me to be internally motivated to do it, and I have to look at someone else to get that motivation, then I have to ask myself, why am I doing it? Did y'all understand that, or does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So in essence, for me, the bottom line is, how do I live my life according to what Christ has in store for me? period. And that's important, that's significant, because everybody else is gonna have their say in one way or the other what they're going to do. I remember, I think it was in the book of Job when Job's wife asked him literally to curse God and just let it go. And Job was like, no, this is not your life. I have to do this because it's between me and God. You know, and that's how you have to look at it with your goals and your personal accomplishments and where you set your dreams to be. Now, it's interesting when you're looking at a realistic goal or any goal, your goal actually often affects other people. They affect other people, but it's still your goal. So my goal to live a healthier life is going to affect how long my wife has to tolerate me. So I live longer. She got to put up with me longer. You know, it also affects how long I'm going to be around for my three daughters, and if they ever have grandchildren, my grandchildren. All of this is going to be affected by the goal that I set for myself. But it's got to be something that I'm wanting to do myself, not just for them.
It starts with you.
It starts with me, and guess what? It ends with me. Ultimately, I'm the one accountable for achieving what I'm going to do. Next question, anyone else have any input that you're thinking about as I'm talking? What reflections are coming to you? Okay, that was good. Thank you. I appreciate it. Huh?
I was thinking.
Oh, okay, that's okay. No, my wife says I be thinking all the time. I think she means thinking, but it could be. It could be. I shouldn't put you on the spot like that.
It's okay.
And don't clarify.
It's done already.
Don't
It's on
clarify.
tape.
Don't clarify. Don't clarify. Don't tell them which one it is. Okay, I might be embarrassed. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and go into this last part, which is timely, making a goal timely. A goal should be grounded within a time frame, with no time frame tied to it. There's no sense of urgency. I think this is almost self-explanatory. You remember I mentioned earlier about losing the 2 pounds over 4 years, or 10 pounds over 5 months. The 2 pounds over 4 years is a better goal than to say, I'm going to lose 2 pounds. You see, even 2 pounds, even how silly it is to think about losing 2 pounds over the next 4 years is actually better than saying, I'm going to lose 2 pounds.
Because it gives you
I
a
think-
time limit.
Yeah. Good, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
It gives you a time limit of when you can get your goal accomplished. Because if you just say, I'm going to lose 2 pounds, it can be 4 years from now, 10 years from now. So if you have a time limit, you'll know what you're working towards.
So, what were you going to say this week?
I also think that whenever you have your goals, to make them timely, you should break your goal down to a short-term goal immediately, what the things that you can accomplish, and then in light of your long-term goals. That way, if you're looking at timeliness, if you have your short-term goals in light of your long-term goals, then you're more likely to accomplish it.
That is good. And this is what's neat about it. That falls right in line with what I was going to talk about. Whenever you're looking at a goal that is timely, not only does it give you the time frame that you're going to do it in, it actually does set up an opportunity for you to put in those measurable points. You can look, if you're saying I'm going to lose 10 pounds in 5 months, at the end of 1 month, you can say, hey, listen, at my own point, have I lost 2 pounds? Okay? Or you may look at the end of that month and says, oh my, I've lost 5 pounds. And then you can modify your goal. And that's what the timeliness and setting a time limit will do. It will give you an opportunity to make adjustments when necessary. So you may start off saying, I'm going to lose 10 pounds in 5 months, and you hit it hard. And at the end of your first month, you may have dropped 6 pounds. And you say, Yeah, I wanted to lose 10 pounds in 5 months because initially I thought that was going to be a challenge. But I'm loving the way that I feel. I like that I'm eating a lot more greens and a little less starches. And I'm really enjoying walking and running and doing all this other stuff. I'm going to change that goal. I'm going to keep my 5 month time period, but I'm going to go up to 25 pounds. With the way I'm moving now, I'm going to go. And you've hit 1 month, you've dropped 8 pounds. Keep in mind, you don't realize why you dropped all of that. You know that you have been working on it. And then you go your second month. And when you hit your second month, you may have lost only 3 more pounds. But that's okay. You reevaluate and you keep right on going, but you don't change it because you've set yourself another goal that is realistic and you think you can believe, and you continue to work for it. Now, I would encourage, wait, does anyone have a question about what I just said or anything similar to?
How long should a person be in an endeavor before they evaluate whether their goal is considered realistic?
You know, it depends on the goal, first of all. I think that different goals require different evaluation points, depending on how challenging it is and what it entails. And that can be set up basically as you are setting your goal. Setting goals are very similar to creating a business plan. Whenever you're creating a business plan, you have an evaluation point throughout that business plan to see your particular point. They're basically reference points. Am I achieving what I want to achieve when I get there? There is no blanket, oh, you should wait 2 months and evaluate something. You should wait 3 months and evaluate something. Depending on what you're doing and what all is entailed, you can set that up basically as you're providing and setting up your goal. Now, I will tell you now, if there is a goal that you're going to really invest into, and it's something that's really serious, where it's going to change the quality of your life and the ones that you care and involved with around you. When you're setting this goal up, right in the process, you're going to see there are time frames you need to reevaluate. You can't just go carte blanche, I'm just going for it without ever taking a look at where you are. Depending on what the goal is going to determine what kind of evaluation you're going to use. You don't want to get into things that are not measurable, where you can say, well, I want to love my children more. How do you measure that? You know, do what?
And I said they're eating 3 meals.
They're eating 3 meals.
They got clothes.
They got clothes. But that don't necessarily mean you're loving them, boy. That just means you're providing for them well. But the thing is that's what I mean. You want to have something, and your goals have to be tangible, where you can actually put a guideline on or a measuring point. But if you say something, I want to love my children more, you can't quantify that. But if you say, I want to spend more time with my children, and you can then establish a goal of what that looks like to you, whether it's I want to spend more time reading to them, playing with them, or taking them out to do things. And I want to spend this much, I want to have this much where I'm actually engaging this much of my day with my children. And you can set that out for 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, or even a year out. And then you can say, these are the things I'm going to try to do, and then set up measuring points between that time. In May or June, did I spend this amount of time with my children? Did I measure when I looked at it? Am I engaging with them this much, or am I just blowing them off because I got work to do and I'm not engaging with them? So I want to go back to answering your question. If the goal is important, you will find areas where you can actually put measuring steps inside. And I would encourage you to do that. Don't make a general goal where you don't have a great timeline and there's nowhere in between where you have room to actually determine are you reaching that goal. Okay. Even in education, you will find people does benchmark testing. Are the students on point where they're supposed to be at this point? You have teachers who do quizzes before they do a major test. Why? It measures, are you working? Are you close to where you are, where you're supposed to be as you get close to this test? What you don't want to do is teach an entire class and say, here's your final exam, and not know whether or not your students even know what they are. So that's just an example. Does that make sense?
Right.
Huh?
I said I study in college.
Yeah.
Final at the end.
Yeah, create a final at the end, and it's not fair. It's almost criminal because you sometimes people teach, and this is where they get twisted. They teach in order to teach, not in order for people to learn, and that's the difference. If I'm teaching you for you to learn, then I'm going to measure and make sure you're learning. If I'm teaching you because I want to teach, then all I want to do is get through the material in the class and say, where's my paycheck? And those are two separate things. Your goal is, and whenever you're thinking about the timeliness of a goal, I want you to understand your goal is probably going to be more realistic when it is truly a goal that you can actually measure with one of your senses, whether you can see it, you can feel it, you can taste it, touch it, hear it. You're going to see that. There's some way where you can actually say, this actually happened. And that goes back to what I was saying, not trying to go off feelings so much, but by actions and things. I remember a while back, I was reading this book years ago, and this guy had went inside of the therapist's office, and he said, look, I think I want to get a divorce. And the therapist said, why? He said, because I don't love my wife anymore. And I may have shared this with you guys before in one of our other sessions. And it got because I don't love my wife anymore. And the therapist looked at him and said, well, that's simple. Just go home and love your wife. And the guy said, well, you didn't understand what I said. I said I don't love her anymore. That's why I'm looking at getting a divorce. And the counselor said, no, you just go home and love your wife. And the guy said, what's wrong? I'm here for help. He said, I'm trying to help you. You need to go home and love your wife. He said, the mistake that you have is you're confusing love with being all of this emotional stuff. But love is a verb. It is action. Go home, open the door for her, cook breakfast for her in the morning, and clean the dishes, and fold the clothes.
Right way though.
Put her jellies out in the spoon and everything. Make sure everything is set. Just tell her, hey, do you want me to bring it to you in bed? But seriously, open the door for her. Because when you start doing that, then the feelings change and it goes on. So, like I said, if this guy wanted to measure his love for his wife, what he had to do was put the things in place to show that he loved his wife and do that. So I encourage you, as you're looking at accomplishing goals and fulfilling whatever dreams you have in your life, make sure that they're measurable, make sure that they're tangible, make sure that they're realistic. Make sure that they're attainable. I mean, that you can actually reach this goal. And make sure that they're very specific so that you're not running around in a circle and you're not easily thrown off. One of the problems, going back a little bit, when a goal is not specific, what happens a lot of times is you start toward the goal and you deviate again. And finally, you're not even close to where you had started and where you needed to be. And you find yourself running around in a circle and not accomplishing anything. But if the thing is specific, you can go toward it. If it's attainable and you know, I can do this, if I lay everything out, just like a business plan in place, I can actually reach this and I can measure where I'm going. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. I can see exactly where I'm going. I can tell how long I'm going to be, how long it's going to take to get there. And I'm not shooting in the sky. It's realistic. It's something that not only that I want, it's within my grasp. I just have to work toward it. And not only that at the end, I can set a timeline and know that I'm there when I get there. Okay. Are there any other questions?
How how do you tell someone how to prioritize your goals? Like if you have multiple goals, like you mentioned about spending time with your kids or even work, if you go to school, how do you prioritize your goals?
You know, once again, what's important to some is not as important to others. The one thing that I tell people is do not try to live someone else's life. That's number one. Whatever goal is for you is for you. The other thing that I would tell anyone is that they really need to pray about situations and things in their life. Prayer does a couple of things. First of all, it invites God into your life to actually begin to minister to you and your needs and where you need to go. Number two, it helps you focus on what am I actually doing and where am I trying to go. And number three, it sets it as a priority that where you're trying to go is important. So you begin to look at, if I do this first or do this second, how it's going to impact others. You realize that sometimes setting goals require you to evaluate not only how it's going to impact you, but those around you as well. For example, you may say that you want to go ahead and pursue your doctorates in social work, and you say, I want to get my DSW, but at the same time, you're saying, well, but down the road, we need to look at buying a house, and we want to get that house together. Looking at where your funds are at that time, looking at what needs to happen and what you can put in place for each one of those situations will ultimately determine what you're going to put first. I mean, if by chance you're getting that doctorate first, it's going to put you in a position where you can teach at a university, increase your income by thousands a year, then that may be the one that you pursue first. Versus, do you need to stabilize your family in a home first, and then make sure everything, your budget and everything is at a point where you could go back and pursue that doctorate without going into too much debt. You may have to do that, but those are individual things that you have to evaluate, pray about, and then make the decision. Finally, many of us are involved in other relationships, and meaning that we have significant others, we have children, we have our spouse, but sometimes you have to talk to them about the direction that you're going in, where you're going in, the goals that you're setting for yourself. And I mean, like the other day, in fact, it was yesterday, my wife and I we were driving somewhere, and I began to tell her something about some goals that I have over the next 10 years of my life. Those are things that I have to have that discussion about, even if it's not set yet, beginning the conversation so that you have that input. It's not just you by yourself that sometimes these things are going to affect. Okay. Next.
What if you have habits that get in the way of you accomplishing your goals, or working on your goals, and making progress on it?
It's so interesting because I have a habit of liking honey buns, and but I need to lose weight. Yeah,
Right. I haven't had no sleep.
yeah, I have no sleeping.
Busting.
You know, this past week, the inspirational word at the school was self-control, and I like that particular word because I shared it with the students and everything, and talked to them about self-control, because self-control really does determine whether or not you're going to ultimately achieve your goal. If you don't have any self-control, you really can't expect too much. I mean, it's like God said, don't expect any double-minded man to receive anything from him, because they're all over the place. Well, it's the same concept. When you have things that definitely are impacting how you're moving forward toward your goal, and it's slowing you down. And I use the example of honey buns. One of the things I would do, let me use that example as just for fun, talk about it. One of the things I need to do is not buy honey buns. Okay, if I do buy a honey bun, only buy one, not a box, you know? So, because if I'm trying to lose weight, I don't want to deprive myself of my honey bun completely, but I don't have to keep a whole box in the house to
It
munch on.
might be cheaper to buy the box. You get one.
That's where
Instead
that's
of-
what.
But you getting
Hey,
scotch.
wait.
Right.
No. That is
I'm gonna eat that whole
that is not that is not bad at all. He has a point. Coach has a point. It may be cheaper to buy the whole box. So you go and buy the whole box. You take 2 of them out, and you take the other box and give it away. You can't take the rest of them and give it to somebody else and bless somebody. And she'll tell you when we buy a cake, it's just the 2 of us in the house. We cut our little pieces off unless we buy one of those really little bitty small cakes. But we cut them off, and I take them into work. I set them out, and I tell somebody to put this cake in a warm place for themselves. And they tell me, I leave a little note. Please put me in a warm place, and I put it out there with the cake. Keep me in a warm, safe place. And I come in, and they be cutting on it, But that way, it's not you. And then there's certain things you can do. For example, where I work, every time you turn around, a child's having a birthday, so they're cupcakes. And then every time you turn around, someone has a cake in there. And one of the things that I made so that I don't eat those things, the first thing I say, if I'm not the first one in there to get something, I'll never eat it. Now, I'm not a germaphobe, and I love my cupcakes. However, I made that as a promise. So that's my self-discipline. I didn't get there
I
first.
love sweets.
I love sweets. I love sweets. But I have to do that in order to do. So I set up things, parameters, to protect me from that. Now, if sleep, for example, is your habit, and you like, use your alarm clock. Wake your.
Yeah,
Wait.
I got 6 alarm.
I will share something with you. This works.
I hit a snooze on.
This worked, and guess what? When I first went into the military, I realized I like sleep a lot. I love sleep. I don't sleep like that now. My wife will tell you, I wake up and when my eyes pop open, I'm wide awake. There's no drowsiness. In fact, this morning she woke me up from a deep sleep. She said, "God, you're sleeping so hard," and I jumped right up out of it. I was going, and she's at that point she's practicing waking up because it takes her a long time. She's like, "I'm practicing waking up." What I did was simple. I had one alarm clock by my bed, and I had a big bin, one of those big bin loud ones, by the bathroom.
You gotta get up.
So I had to get up and go cut it off. And I made a commitment not to go back to bed. Whenever I went in, I cut it off and went straight into the bathroom. And then I took my shower and got ready. So I put things in place so that
I did not like that.
I literally sabotage my sleep by setting myself up. But they have another conversation going on. Y'all go ahead and talk with it.
That's okay.
Yeah, that would
I said I
work
used
for
to
me.
do that, but I got into the habit of going back to the bed. But
Right.
I would pick up the alarm because it's my phone. I would put it far away and I would go back.
And pick it up and see.
Yes.
And then I got like 5 minutes of it.
And now I'm going to share this with you, and this part hurts. If that is the case, then the goal isn't that serious. Yeah, that's just the bottom line. If that is the case. Because I will tell you, and we all know, every person will do what they really want to do. And that's just the reality. And a person who says, "I want to quit smoking," and man, all I can look at them, if you really want to quit, you quit. You put the things in place to make it happen. Whether you have to buy the Nicorette or whatever it is you're going to do, where you have to start bumming cigarettes from people until you finally say, whether you have to buy a pack and throw it, whether you have to smoke a whole pack at one time and make yourself sick up, whatever you have to do, you're going to do it in order to quit. If you're talking about losing weight and you're serious about losing weight, you can lay in bed all day long. Or you can get up and be serious about it, because a person who's serious about it would do something out of the ordinary in order to accomplish their goals. For example, if you're real serious about losing weight, and I like using this as an example because most people can relate to it. You will get up in the morning early before you go to work to exercise. As miserable as that sounds, if you're serious about it. If you're serious about it, that's just the way it is. If you're serious about losing weight, you'll stop buying all those honey buns and fight. You may just quit buying them altogether. If you are serious about it, and I'll tell you something, and I know this, there's two things I know. I know that people who have had problems losing weight before and eating right, as soon as they become diabetic, guess what? There you right. A person who has a problem quitting smoking, 99% of the time, as soon as they have their first scare of cancer, gone. We have it in us to basically accomplish anything that we really want to accomplish if it is important enough to us. Or we can always come up with an excuse to run away from it. And we can do that just as easily. We can justify it. We can always justify it. And we can say, man, I want to, but, I can't do it. I want to this, I can't do. And it's not true. You can't. Next question.
Thank you for tuning into Tabernacle Talk with Tabernacle Christian Church. If this Bible study has been a blessing to you, or if you have a question concerning the Word of God that you would like to have addressed, you can contact us via email at tabtalk2016. That is tabtalk2016@gmail.com. For more information on Tabernacle Christian Church, you can visit our website at www.tccenter.net. Until next time, go in peace and serve the Lord and be led by the Holy Spirit. God bless.